Welcome, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. It is 6:32. We are the Greenfield Conservation Commission, and we are presenting tonight's hearing via hybrid. In person is via the John Zahn Community Center, but you can also join us online via Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. And should any technical interruption to the meeting occur and the meeting is suddenly ended, it will not be resumed and all items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting date, which is 2 weeks from today. Contact the conservation agent, Jessica, for more information. This meeting is being recorded by the Conservation Commission. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Is anybody else recording? Okay, not hearing anything. I'll assume we're the only ones recording, so I will call this meeting to order. I will take a roll call of members present. We have Elizabeth, our chair.
I'm here.
Great. Erica?
I don't think I could hear you. Oh, I'm here.
Emily?
I'm here.
Is that everybody that we have? Okay, and then we also have our agent, Jessica. The first item on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes from March 25th, 2025. Just a statement, approved meeting minutes will become available to the public on our website on the next business day following this meeting. Okay, do we have any motion on approval of meeting minutes?
Also move. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call and then we'll do a quick discussion. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Does anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes from last time?
Can I just say, don't we have to comment before we vote on it?
Did we just vote to approve it?
I thought we did, so. But anyway. Just a comment though. I didn't have any comments on those. minutes.
I was happy with how they were. I didn't see any changes needed.
Mhm.
Everybody's good?
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, motion was made, seconded, no comments. Let's move on to the first item on our agenda. So we do have a public hearing continued. This was continued from March 25th. This is for a request for an amended order of conditions improvements at the Greenfield Water Pollution Control Facility at 384 Deerfield Street, maps 14, 15, lots 3A-1. This is DEP file 168-360. I don't know, Jessica, do you want to open this up?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
I will share my screen. If you recall last week, we last meeting, sorry, that we discussed these updated plans and had decided that we needed more information on the cut and fill calculations. The applicant stated that it would be greater flood storage volume, but we wanted to see the calculations. So
This is for bordering land subject to flood, right?
correct. And so this was the updated plan just to jog the commission's memory. And we did receive the cut and fill calculations and which are in the G Drive. And there is someone from Ty and Bond on the meeting tonight. His name is Zachary Wyland, I believe it's pronounced. So
Yes,
he's
that's
here.
correct.
Hi, Zach. He's
Hi,
here
everyone.
to discuss or answer any questions that the commission may have.
Do you want to just give us a quick overview, Zach, of these data that you're presenting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the quick or the summary is that the elevation the original slab that we had was still dropped that additional 1 inch, and then the additional fill volume that got added was that because the building is shifting further away from the catch basin, the slope from the face of the building to the catch basin was extended. So there was more fill volume associated with that got added on, or that is removed. So that there's additional volume for that. The higher incremental volume that is shown from the previous iteration is from the shift in the order control pad that got shifted further down in order to accommodate that space. And so because of how the grading in that area was for when you all visited, it dips down a little bit. That additional incremental volume of fill got added on. So the total compensatory storage volume went from 28.03 from the original NOI and order of conditions to 65, 68, 60 something. Where is it? Where's my email?
Is that different from the figures we have on the screen here?
Oh, so it's the difference between 175 and 106 is that compensatory storage.
Gotcha.
Are there any other questions for how those got calculated or that you would like to see?
Could we see on the map where these come from? I
Yeah.
think I remember, but not quite sure.
I have them up too if you want me to share,
Sure.
Jessica.
Yes.
Sure.
Just stop sharing.
Where's that share button? Why don't I see it?
It will pop up. I just have to
Oh,
stop. I
gotcha.
don't know why my screen's being
windows
weird.
always do
There we
that.
go.
Share. Yeah. So so the building shifted from being flush with the existing structure back about 15 feet. And so the actual fill volume that changed. So this is a profile view that I sketched up to kind of show what's going on here. So
I don't
oh.
think it's sharing quite yet.
Because I didn't finish sharing the button. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So as Jessica had shown before, this is the new biosolids expansion building that we had talked about before. Originally, it was flush with the front of the building, and it shifted backwards. And so, as part of that, I have this like profile view of kind of the changes that end up happening. So this black line was the initial grade and the existing catch basin that was here. This red face is showing where the original NOI submitted on, and this additional this red dotted line was the initial slope that we had. When we shifted it back, in order to maintain that slope to the existing grade of the catch basin, all this like light blue area is the additional compensatory storage that we're seeing. In addition, the building itself got a 5 feet shorter. So the frost walls that made up that additional 5 feet are no longer there. And so are also taken out of the calculation.
So by shorter, do you mean the portion at the towards
Yeah.
the top of the image are not there? Is it
This
just a darker rectangle that's going to be there? Or is
correct.
it-
Yeah. Yes. this darker rectangle, the extension building got shorter, and then the building shifted back a bit.
Back from,
So the original building was here, so it shifted back and then also got shorter as part of that.
okay.
And your table shows the flood storage by 1 foot elevations, correct?
Correct, yes. Yep.
That
And
was my comment last time, so that's good.
yep, yeah, and if we look back at the original NOI, the elevations that the table itself that I'm just gonna in the original table that was submitted as part of it, all of the elevation changes were happening between 31 and 32, and now it's between 33 and 32. That isn't a change in the actual elevations, like relative to the surrounding grades of the existing grade. The original submission was based off NGVD 29 and the site drawings, which was all in that 31 to 32 range. Afterwards, we got some additional data from site elevation measurements, and to show that they're actually at this 132 level. So like in order to be more accurate, the entire site elevations were updated.
We should have asked that during the original, just so the commission knows, whenever there's work in bordering land subject to flood or BLSF, we should always make sure that the plans are based off of the NFIP data. And I can't remember if we asked Ty and Bond that in the original review. It's kind of late now, but just going forward, we should always make sure the bordering land subject to flood elevations based off NFIP,
What's that stand for?
the National Flood Insurance Rate Maps.
Right.
So not just like a Mass GIS spatial data line. It needs to be like an actual confirmed elevation.
So this, you're saying, Zach, is more accurate.
Correct. Yes, to the actual GPS actual verified in the field measurements. Correct.
Do any other commissioners have any other questions or comments?
Gable, do not get on that couch, either one of you. Brody, no.
I think that's incidental sound.
Yeah.
Hang on one second.
Come on. Stop.
I don't have,
Sorry, Emily, did you have a question or a comment?
just saying that I don't have any more questions or comments.
All right, do we have a motion? Or do we, actually, we should open this up to the public, right? This is a public hearing, is it not? This is
It
a
is.
public hearing, okay.
Yes.
Do we have anyone from the public who wants to ask any questions of the applicant? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. If the commissioners don't have any other questions or comments and nobody from the public has any questions or comments, are we ready for a motion? We can talk about conditions after, I think, right? Or do we want to talk about conditions first? Erica, that was one of your questions before. Do we want to talk about conditions before or after we motion? I felt like we usually do after, but
After we motion, but not take the vote, I think.
yeah, okay, gotcha.
You were
But-
asking, when do we
But
close
do
the
we close the,
hearing?
do we need to close the hearing first? I don't remember. the order.
Either.
All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Just in case.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I guess I don't take a roll call. We take we talk about conditions, right?
No,
Have any?
well, that was just closing the public hearing. That wasn't the,
So now we make a motion on
yeah.
what is the request made?
The request was just to amend the order of conditions with the updated plan. So really, they were just
Yeah.
letting us know that there was a slight change in plans, making sure it was all good, and, you know, kind of going through the motions of having the permit now be for their updated plans instead of the previous ones.
Right.
I make a motion to approve their updated plans with the new calculations and for the water sewage plant, right?
At 384 Deerfield.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is for DEP file 168-360. I can't imagine we're gonna need to include any additional special conditions, right?
It seems straightforward. They answered our concerns. They gave us documentation of what the change was and that it's beneficial or it's towards the, increasing the storage capacity. So I don't see a need for any further conditions.
Okay, I guess I'll just take a roll call then. Erica,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
and Elizabeth.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Thank you so much, Zach and Ty and Bond, for joining us tonight and for doing those extra calcs. I know it was extra exercise, but we appreciate it for the record.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, what is the next thing on our agenda? Oh, we have new business. So certificate of compliance for 125 Mohawk Trail. This is DEP file number 168-0323. This expired in July of 2021. Did we already talk about this? Is there like a tolling extension that would apply to that, or?
I wasn't around when we talked about this, but they are trying, so the permit was for a hotel and they never built it. So this is that empty lot that's next to the gas station on the way to the Rotary from our side of, I guess, east. So they're trying to just close it out because they have new plans, hopeful plans for that lot. So I went there, I took pictures, and it's just an empty lot. They did tear down. I don't know what hotel was there before. Do you guys know?
Howard Johnson's, well.
Howard Johnson's?
Way ago.
Well, a long
Then
time
there
ago.
was a roadway or something.
Okay.
Yeah, or Hotel 6 or
Yeah,
something.
so now it's just an empty lot here. I'll share my screen.
So they didn't,
Real
so is this is the request for, like, the work never happened, or what is the request?
Yeah, so they had come before you in 2018, I think,
Oh, okay.
and had very elaborate plans for a new hotel and got the permit and demoed the current at the time building, and then but never moved past that stage. So it's clear that the lot's empty, it's cleared away. So let me bring up some photos just to show you guys. Unfortunately, the agent at that time, that we have no photos on file. I don't know why. And also, I believe, let's see. Brandon, you're here tonight to discuss this, correct? Yes. Brandon Lee is on the Zoom call and is here to answer any questions. So let me share my screen so I can bring up the photos. so again, they're in no particular order. To my left is that gas station, and I'm looking west, so the Rotary is like way over there. And behind me is a stream, and so there's like a chain link fence behind me. The pavement goes right up to the chain link fence, and this is the stream, and that's like a drain. I don't know if this is the drain that's like owned by the state, the Mass DOT, because I know they have like some sort of drainage system. Anyway, here's the stream. So you can see, on the far east side of the lot, the fence, the pavement goes right up to the fence. And that's like the southern part of the stream where it just corners and goes further east. And this is the gas station, the back of the gas station, and Mohawk Trails on the other side. I don't even know what this thing is. It's like a weird,
It's like a lid.
a what?
It looks like a lid because it's round, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's like, has to do with the stormwater or something.
Ah.
And
That looks so
so
well.
here's the gas station. There's like cars parked way over there. It's paved right here, but then this is all grasses. And there's a line of trees. So yeah, you can see that's where the hotel was. This is Mohawk Trail, so there are cars being stored very far from the resource area. That's looking back. Here's the gas station, so that's looking back. So that stream was just in these trees here. And that's that.
So is this a request for a partial certificate of compliance since they did the demo, but they didn't do the construction?
It's for the request is for a full certificate of compliance because they want to develop this lot. They want to move forward with the project. They're not doing the project they did before. And there's nothing else. I don't know how it could be a partial, I guess, is what I'm thinking, because they didn't do the project.
Yeah, exactly. That they didn't do the project. So how
Yeah.
can it be a full compliance if they didn't implement the actual project?
But
To close it out.
they have to close it out, and
But you can do a closeout with a, can you do a closeout with a partial?
no, it stays on as a cloud. Like that's what
Yeah, you're right.
that 290 Shelburne that we were talking to last meeting.
Mhm.
Right.
So
So
they
it
did-
has to either be a full certificate of compliance and there's no other alternative. It's
Well,
not an invalid order or ongoing conditions.
there is an option on the certificate of compliance that says like the work never began.
But that isn't really true either, so.
I know, it's like it seems like a gray area because they did the demo, but they
Right.
didn't touch like that area that was paved before. Right? So like that was untouched. So I don't know,
Right.
I don't,
And issuing a COC won't have any bearing on the future permitting, correct? Cause like
what do you mean by that question?
if we issue a COC, but the project was never completed. And they come before us again with a new proposal, a new notice of intent for a new project. you know, having a COC for the old plans that were never implemented, that won't have any bearing on a new permit, right? They just need, this is just paperwork, right? They just need to have this closed
Yeah, so
out.
the COC will just clear the clouds so that they can move forward with a new project, and the
Gotcha.
new project would have to come back before us.
Okay,
And the members of the commission would have the opportunity to set orders of conditions for what they would like in the resource areas.
gotcha. Okay, that's kind of what I thought. Yeah, this is just a clerical issue. You can't have two open permits on one parcel, so, okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Brandon, did you want to present anything that we maybe left out?
I think Jessica covered everything pretty well. Just to note, the previous hotel was a Roadway Inn. It was demolished in 2019. The order of conditions was granted in 2018. There's, Google Street View that shows that the hotel was there in 2018, and then 2019, you can see that it was demolished. And the owner of the property purchased the property in 2022. So he was not involved in the demolition of the hotel. As Jessica mentioned, there are some pavement that remains, the old parking lot. Currently, the applicant has purchase and sales agreement with the owner. And we will be before you to with a notice of intent and plans and stormwater report to develop the property.
So
Thank you.
is this, it couldn't have changed hands without closing this out, right? So,
It
Yeah.
can, it follows the
so,
property,
okay,
so
so,
it's still
so has
on the
it changed
property.
hands?
It has changed
The
hands.
property has changed hands, but,
Okay.
It doesn't have to be closed out, it just goes along with the property.
Okay. Okay, so it has changed. Okay.
I guess my only question would be, under the original order of conditions, before we issue a COC, under the original order of conditions, if there was anything associated specifically with the demolition, and if there was any kind of like as-built required, as long as those documents have been prepared and provided, I mean, obviously the project was never constructed, but if there's anything associated with like the site preparation in the original orders, I guess that's my question.
thank you. I looked at those the other day and I didn't see anything about what you just said, but I did see stuff about they wanted to like breach the no disturb zone, and the commission at the time granted them permission to do that if they did X, Y, and Z in another area. And so there was stuff like that, but because that project, that was never started, then I think it's kind of null and void.
I just have a question about the parking lot. Was there paving that was done after the demolition? Brandon? Do you
No.
know?
No, it was the existing parking
Okay.
lot for the hotel.
That's my understanding.
Then, I agree with Kristen. The only thing we would need to look at is just to make sure that, the demolition, went along with whatever the conditions were that were applied at that time. Other than that, it seems like, nothing else applies, nothing else was done, so we don't have anything to compare, so we would just close it out.
Can I do a screen share, Jessica?
Yes.
So I think these are the orders. Is this right? So these are the special conditions. 7 parking spaces shall be removed from the eastern portion of the project site adjacent to the intermittent stream to mitigate work within the 25-foot no disturb. And so I'm assuming that did not occur?
Now, those, I believe, were what was paved where I was walking. So those did not get removed because the work didn't start.
So I guess my only comment to the commission would be, if we want that implemented into the next application, let's just make sure we go back and look at this special condition list.
I
Yeah,
don't
makes
think
sense.
it was removing the ones that are currently there. I think it was the plans they showed us had a bunch of ones down there and we said, no, you can't have them that close. And
Oh,
I-
Erica, it's so good that we have you on this commission because you remember everything. You've been on the commission for so long.
I think it was-
Trees removed, that's not relevant. Hedgerow, that's not relevant. Um,
The only question I had was that, like, anything in perpetuity, do we have to, I mean, that goes along with the COC, but I don't know what they'd have to.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
question. The,
that's prior to construction. Mm, mm, mm. Approved erosion and sediment control, pre-site meeting. At any time before, during, or after construction and until issuance of a COC, the commission may require the applicant to modify, augment. Okay, I don't think that's relevant. During construction, never happened. Let's see if there's any perpetuity. There are a lot of special conditions with this.
I think those
these
are the boilerplate that they tack on after the special conditions.
Oh, it
Yeah,
was
so
called special
there's
conditions.
4, so like if you scroll back up under special conditions, there's 4. And then and that says general conditions. And then it's the boilerplate.
So there were a couple that continued on even after the certificate of compliance. Did you see that?
Down here.
Yeah.
Perpetual.
The bioremediation,
What'd you say?
but,
Up.
all of these conditions shall survive and
excuse me.
shall include as continuing conditions in perpetuity on the certificate of compliance.
Okay.
So yes, looks like.
So yeah, I can add those, cause yeah, there's a spot in the certificate of compliance that says ongoing conditions, so I can include those. And then when, we do, I can remind you guys, when we do receive the NOI for the future project, that we revisit that, the special conditions for this.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and this was where I found those. I'll stop my sharing now. I have to just find all my ribbons. I moved them, so now. Okay. Hey Elizabeth. Does anybody else have any other questions for the applicant at this time?
Brandon, do you guys have a sense of what the time frame is for moving forward on a new plan?
Say in a few weeks is the anticipated timeline, but it hasn't been nailed down yet.
Okay, but we'll hear from you again soon. That sounds good.
All right, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for the 125 Mohawk Road that didn't happen.
Seconded.
Elizabeth.
Liz, you want me to keep going or? do you
Oh,
wanna-
yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. This is for DEP file 1680323. I think I already opened it to the public. I'm sorry. I'm like forgetting. Did I do that, Jessica?
This is the public.
Yeah,
Oh,
this-
right. Okay, thank you. It's been a wicked long day. All right, cool. So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Erica,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
and Elizabeth?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Thanks, Brandon, so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Brandon.
everybody.
We'll see you soon. All right, the next thing under new business is, sorry, what was that?
You want to just keep rolling for the rest of the night?
It's up to you if you want to take over. I'm like pretty spent, so if
Okay,
you're
I can do that.
feeling sharper.
I won't go that far, but I can take over. Next up, we've got a pesticide application notification letter from Berkshire and Eastern Railroad.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Yeah, they just sent a letter notifying the commission that they will be spraying herbicide, mixture of herbicides, aquaneat, I want to say Aquanet. Aquaneat, Open Site, Polaris AC Complete, and MSO Extra will be applied with low pressure spray application by a truck mounted high rail truck. Oh, track mounted high rail truck. The purpose of the application is to control nuisance vegetation in the ballast portion of the railroad right away and around switches and signals. So I received this letter and I'm not sure what the commission, what other information the commission would like to receive when I receive these kind of letters.
I personally would like to see active ingredients included in that, just because the
Okay.
trade name doesn't really mean much.
Okay,
But also why they're selecting that particular mix of materials and what, like, are they targeting annual broadleafs? Are they targeting grass?
Yeah.
Et cetera.
There's.
What are the target species? Yeah, it's kind of important. What are nuisance?
So I think they're referring us to the operational plan, which has the details.
Okay.
That's in the rest of the letter.
And does the operational plan also detail who will be applying these, if there'll be licensed, herbicide applicators licensed in Massachusetts? And do we need to get like a pre and post letter notification and report? Or I don't know about the OMP. I don't know where that
The
is.
letter states who the herbicide will be applied by as Splenda Railroad Division, not the person, but the organization. And
So it looks like we can get a copy of the operational plan online or a hard copy from them.
this is the website address they gave to receive. So I think this is it.
We don't have a copy of their OMP on file?
it's the 2025 one. It's a
Yeah,
year-
but we should have a copy at the commission.
Well, I
Um,
presume this is the new one for this year. So they're sending it to us, right? Or rather, they're letting
They
us know
said
where to
that
get it.
we could download it here, which it's not like obvious to me. I don't know if I'm being but they also said we could request a hard copy if we wanted.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna reach out to him because I'm not seeing where to download it.
I feel like that's not standard practice to say, refer to our website for our annual permit. We should be receiving it in an email. And we should receive an electronic copy directly.
Oh, whoops.
I agree, Kristen.
Okay, so typically you guys do receive these every year from, okay.
I don't know, Erica, what have you seen in years past? You've been on the commission for ages. Like, what have the railroad done? I'm not saying you're old. I'm older than you. I'm just saying you have experience.
We've gotten these in several times at least. I don't know if it's
Okay.
every year or every other year or whatever, but it's usually sounds the same.
This kind of letter.
This kind of letter.
But-
But I don't remember, it seemed like that they usually sent us
More.
all the information,
Okay.
like, so that we, didn't have to go
Okay,
look for ourselves.
okay, well, I'll dig deeper
Um,
and get that plan, talk to this person, Keith, who sent the letter and, yeah.
Cause this is exempt or something, right, isn't it? I mean, this is not.
They're
something we
just
vote on.
notifying
They're just
us.
notifying.
We're
us,
not
so-
voting on this. They're
yeah, so
just
we can't-
notifying.
Yeah.
So we can't do anything,
Yeah, we got no.
but we would like to see it anyway.
But yeah, says you
Okay.
want to know kind of the ingredients and stuff. Is that so that you would request if it's like really bad that they
Well,
not use
yeah, so
certain
like, is it
blends?
glyphosate or is it paraquat?
Okay,
Also, their letter states that Asplund is the licensed operator, but not the person themselves that is operating it. And there's some wiggle room in there. But again, if it's paraquat, there's a different licensing that goes along with that particular active ingredient than does, for example, glyphosate or glufosinate.
okay, I'll dig
So-
deeper.
And also, a lot of times in those veg management plans, you know, they'll state like that they'll notify the commission before the activity. But they'll also have a list of the target species. They'll also have a list of the ingredients in their veg management plan, which will be like a 500-page document. And then they might also state that they'll give us a post-application report. And we don't know what their VMP is, so.
Okay. I'll report back on that.
The one that I'm seeing on here doesn't have Greenfield listed.
Did you go to that address?
I went to the website and I'm looking at the New England Central Railroad Company 2025 Post-Emergent Yearly Operational Plan,
Oh,
Massachusetts line.
Oh.
I was like,
Yeah, so like we said before, I think having them deliver that
okay,
physical copy would be lovely, because if this thing is the
Sure.
thing, then the vegetation management plan listed here doesn't cover, the municipalities covered by this plan are Amherst, Belchertown, Irving, Leverett, Munson, Montague, Northfield, Palmer, and Sunderland.
So
Not even our yeah.
that's not our county.
Right.
Right.
Well, some of it is Northfield,
Oh,
but,
okay,
But
but-
nonetheless.
but we're not listed.
okay,
Right,
We are the
so this
county seat.
plan, assuming, of course, I've found the appropriate
Okay.
plan, which I don't swear that I have,
okay,
doesn't cover Greenfield.
okay.
I guess part of our feedback is it's preferred if they send it to us directly.
Yes, please.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and my preference, just for the record, personally, not that because it sounded like they were like, you can download it from our website or we'll send you a hard copy. But my preference would be an electronic copy. Personally, I have a feeling it's going to be a very lengthy permit or report.
Yeah, this one's 114 pages.
Yeah. I just feel like there should be an option for an electronic copy that's directly emailed to you, Jessica.
Yeah, I'll get that. I'm just still trying to figure out like why I don't see, oh wait, New England Central Railroad. Monitor notice, vegetation, is this it?
It should be a vegetation management plan associated with an annual operation and maintenance plan. So usually all utilities have an annual OMP with a VMP.
So this one is their VMP is 2025 to 2029, and that's the one that I'm looking at right now. Which is only 85 pages, so that's better. Sorry. Nonetheless, Emily's correct. Regardless of this detailed bit of conversation we're having, the bottom line is we need them to deliver this to us.
Okay,
I can understand them not wanting to have to email a 100-page document because sometimes it can bounce out of people's buffers.
yeah,
But if there's a direct link, you know, because if we're just casting about and we don't know where the document is, then we can't look at it. so.
Precisely.
oh yeah, they do have identification of target nuisance vegetation, weeds, brush, trees. Okay, all right,
But yeah. and
I'll
also-
report back.
yeah.
Let me get all the
And
details.
legally, I mean, since we're not listed there, we.
Well,
been
that
listed.
was different. This one's got another,
Oh. wait, this
I'm
one,
looking
this
to see. I don't see Greenfield on there either.
one.
Greenfield does not appear to be listed. I'm trying to make it bigger, but it's not.
Can you share it? Oh,
Andover,
I
I
don't
can
know, I don't know,
shoot.
I don't know if we need to.
Well,
It seems like that could be a thing.
the Chester, Clinton, Dalton, Devens, East Brookfield, Framingham, Groton, Harvard, no Greenfield.
Yeah, it's not on here.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
so we're, our
seems
cities.
like we should be. Should be listed if they
Yeah.
do stuff there.
Okay. To be continued.
Indeed.
Old business?
Still reading this.
Oh, no.
Thank you for waiting very patiently.
All right,
Okay, sorry, let me get back to where we were here. Up next, old business, Stephen. Thank you for coming in again.
You're welcome. I always like coming in here.
So
Our Zoom, our Wi-Fi is horrible, so we try to hold family Zoom calls at the house. They just pixelate and you get a stalled screen, so I might as well come in.
Fun glitching. All
Only a
right. So
10-minute drive.
so just so we read it off into the record here, Lampblack Road, parcel R08-11A-0, a road was cut and excavated down the wooded hillside to the floodplain and riverfront below in order to access the Fall River. This was not a permitted project. Stephen Pritchard was heading the project and is in attendance to discuss erosion control, mitigation, installation, and next steps.
That's me. Basically, I've just been working along, applying the jute material to both the road path surface and the sidewalls. There was a period of time when we did not go down there because the weather, it was frozen and then it rained a lot. Well, the spring thaw did bring a lot of water down the hill, and Jessica came out today for an inspection, and I used a wattle at the bottom of the path where it touched down on the river flat. The silt in the topsoil kind of went over that. So after you left, Jessica, I talked to Greg Harris and he said, Steve, put in the soil screening fencing with stakes to stop it because it has leached out. He said you can apply it at the bottom of the path and also at the furthest point of the plume so it doesn't move any further. The nice thing about the soil screening fence, I didn't realize this, is they have like a 4-inch pad at the bottom that acts like a blade. So will not allow the silt to move forward. It'll let the water through, but not the silt. So that was one of the major changes in the site, and it rutted the path. Jessica's got some good pictures. So I know Kristen made a comment that she's not real high on riprap, but it was our only choice to stop the sidewalls of the ruts from dropping in to allow the water to carry it down to the river flat. So we have a plan, and the plan is to cover that with the jute, the riprap, bring in some soil from the site. We don't really want to bring in soil because it's costly. My wife and I are already, she's worried because the well's not running dry, but we want to get the project done. So I put together a restoration plan, which Jessica has, but we want to shore up the site. There's a main source of water coming out of the side. It is a natural spring and it runs constantly, and it's trying to find its path to where it originally went, which is into a ravine next to the path. So I brought in the excavator, which, you know, upon the cease and desist order, we were done building the path. He went home for the holidays and he went to Florida and he came back. He came to the site this morning, and part of his contract was, as he reminded me, was he was going to come back to the site and examine what happened with the winter thaw and the runoff. And because they have built many roads in his career. And then they plan how they're going to collect the water like a natural spring and prevent it from doing any more erosion. So his plan, which I reviewed with Jessica, I showed her a sample of what he did on our driveway. And it basically is to keep a minimal amount of riprap, but you create like a little pool collecting all the water off the hill where it's coming out. And collect it, and at the low point, install a 12-inch piece of PVC corrugated pipe, lay it under the path bed, which would carry that clear spring water. It would not allow it to pick up any soil because it'd be running through a solid plastic pipe, and then have it come out into the ravine where it always had gone. So to eliminate the problem of having it break. What it's doing now is gravity's taking it across. We had wattles in for water bars, and you could see exactly how it reacted. When it thawed, it ran across the water bar, which they were working fine, but it created a rut to run off the side. And so this way, there'd be no more rutting. You'd carry it under the path, let it drain out. The ravine is really steep because it follows the original slope of the where it came down to the river flat. So I think it's a great plan, but we want to make sure it's approved by the Conservation Commission.
Should I start with the photos then? We'll end with the tree planting plan. Okay. Okay, so this is just past the 200-foot mark. So everything covered in jute and down the hill. The 200-foot mark, riverfront mark, is maybe around like the ladder. So everything down the hill is riverfront.
Making progress.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is right, I think where that water
That's the spring where it
starts
comes out.
seeping,
Yeah.
and it was starting to cut underneath the jute.
Where is the spring? Can we see it in this
think it's right
picture?
here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it like is like all this kind of like the lake
Oh,
comes
it
up.
looks dampish.
Yeah, there's like 3 little streams of water coming out of the side of the hill.
Yeah,
And it's just constant flow. It's not water runoff from rain or from melt. This is an actual spring.
So this is like a really weird angle, but the water like wants to come out here. So you can kind of see it
Oh, yeah.
collapsing a little bit. And then there's water that goes down this hill here. So it comes down here and down there. So
The dirt
this,
that we're seeing there, is that part of the construction?
Yes.
this here, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the, like the edge of the road right here.
But it goes past that tree.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was that part of the water bar construction?
The water bar was just up from that.
Yeah, I think this is just all like.
That shows
road.
where it
To
washes.
the right, it's very,
Like
just,
here?
just exposed dirt. Is that just like?
Yeah, so I'm standing like on the edge, so the excavator guy like dug into the hillside and like pulled it and like built up this edge, so that's like part of the buildup of the road.
Okay.
So
the plans-
is there actually like measurable fill in the resource area that was added?
Well,
Yeah.
here, why don't, we'll get to the bottom of the road and you can see what's down there. So I'm just working my way down the hill so you can see kind of like that's where this like spring is kind of cutting the soil underneath the jute. And then the water bars were working pretty well, but then it like worked its way under the water bar too. And so now we're
my
like
God.
down towards the bottom and you can see that some of the soil has migrated and is spilling out a bit.
That's where we want to place the soil screening fence.
Yeah.
To stop it. You can remove the soil, but
Like that little spillage.
I honestly feel like this should be escalated to the state. I don't know. This is bad. This is like, there's a ton of material. They want to put in more soil and more riprap. This is.
One of my concerns about the plan that you just sort of sketched out, I haven't seen it in detail or anything, is that, like you described, those seeps are in multiple areas. So it seems like it's not the same as saying, oh, well, this is a stream that we can see where it's going and we can create a culvert to make, the pathway for it to go under. If it's coming from multiple points, it'll be very hard to direct that. Or it sounds like it would.
well, if you go back to the real serious wet spot,
The serious what?
that wet spot in the middle of the path, uphill.
Like that?
Yeah, that, believe it or not, it's not that large of an area. we don't have the Jute on it.
Yeah.
But this is probably 3 feet, so the bowl that he wants to create, all the water that we see live, that's constantly running, comes into this area right here, and then it does its thing. I mean, the water bar and this is up from the water bar, but this is from it was a huge ice snowpack until the end of February, March. I think it was like last week of February, there was a 60-degree day, and then a
Yeah, I know.
rainstorm. And so when I went back down, all the snow was gone, and I saw this huge rut.
Yeah.
And that's why we applied the riprap to prevent it from collecting dirt. But this is where he wants to do the little bit of a bowl, riprap it, pipe under, because the ravine's over here. And he feels he could collect all this water, because you don't see any water anywhere else on the trail that's coming from any other source, except rain runoff, but that'll go away once the grass starts growing. It's not easy until you see what Mother Nature or nature's doing on the site.
Well, the problem is all the trees were taken down and you added fill.
Yeah, down at the bottom, you're right, he scratched the sides, creating the scar to get fill to make the ramp.
In the
Because
worst season, and now it's not stable and it's messy. And it's
Well-
really difficult to control that. And just throwing, in my opinion, just putting down hard armor is not a very creative solution. And I don't love that idea because it's just adding more fill to a resource area. And-
where would the fill come from?
The riprap,
Well, if he installs the pipe next week, it would minimize it. And then the
It-
grass is going in the first, like right around the 1st of May to ensure there's no more frost. So all the trees and the plantings on the side hills are going in the week of the 21st.
didn't you say you wanted to install a settling basin and riprap?
No,
Is there
There's a
further
setting.
plans that we should look through? Because we haven't seen everything yet, right?
That's a good question.
This last photo, this is up at his house and it's just a like section of riprap and there's, ooh,
It's a swale. It's a rock lined swale.
yeah,
Yes.
we would not make it that large on the path.
but yeah, so I probably should have like stood a little closer.
So this is the model
But-
that he's talking about.
Yeah, so like just having like a little depressed zone with the rock that would feed into the pipe that would go under the road.
And that depressed zone would be situated where that water soaking is. on that-
Exactly.
So that we could
Be large enough to accompany all of the water that's coming out now. It's like 3 little streams.
But that's a culvert replacement that doesn't meet the current Massachusetts stream crossing standards. And it's additional fill in a resource area for a project that wasn't even permitted. I know we have we have to address the immediate concern, which is the erosion, but I don't personally feel that skirting other regulations is the way to do that.
One of the issues is that, right now we've been working with you just to do sort of the retention to make sure that everything doesn't get worse. Any further work to change the soil, if it's within the resource area, would require filing an NOI. So everything that was done wasn't permitted. That doesn't mean we can do more not permitted. So we have to go into that process. We haven't yet because we were just trying to figure out how to keep it and there was no more change that was going to happen. So what he's suggesting is another act, it's,
It's like a project.
yeah. it's
Even though
another
the
project.
fill's on site.
Yeah, any change to that land now, I mean, like putting a fence in is just keeping things from getting worse. It's not adding to it and altering it. But if you did dig to
Like a
put that pipe
trench.
in, then you would have to do a project. You'd
How
have
long
to
does
file
that,
this as a
how long does
project.
that process take? Because I don't want to lose the guys on their schedule.
Well, we can walk you through what the process is, but that does trigger, talking to DEP as well, so,
Talking to
Be at
who?
least a month, I
Department.
think,
Yeah,
before
yeah,
you
exactly.
could be seen by the commission. It'd be, like, that it couldn't be the next meeting, it'd have to be the meeting after.
So
And-
what this all basically, the purview that's all under is the Rivers Act and the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah.
So now we're entering into, okay, so if you want to do some further work, if you want to remove, if you want to put in riprap, that's the point at which you just have to start from here and go through the whole process.
Is it electronic form or paperwork?
It's,
Hard copy?
electronic paperwork.
Yeah, you can do it online, but the
Either one,
the
either one.
filing system online is sort of not very user friendly.
I can help
Print
you.
it, print it out, get a hard
Yeah.
copy and then
Yeah.
scan it and email it.
Yeah, I can point you in the right direction for all.
What's
all
the name of the
forms.
form I'm filling out?
But it won't be a simple thing to just say, oh, we're just gonna dig it up and put a pipe. Because that's part of what got us into this situation here,
Yeah.
is that none of it's simple. We're gonna have to look at the regulations and there'll be a review by DEP. And this is just how anybody has to deal with anything that they're doing near water.
Yeah.
It's just exactly the same
No,
thing.
I
And here
get
we're
it.
sort of halfway through because so much work got done. And
Excuse
you
me,
did-
can I just chime in?
Yeah.
This
please.
is, this is Missy Pritchard, Steve's wife.
Sure.
I just have two quick questions. One is, if the DEP gets involved, will they help us with guidance on what we should do?
Definitely.
And two, do you yourself have any guidance? Like you said, you didn't like the way it looked at the bottom, and the culvert isn't compatible with the rules or whatever. Like, what would you like to see us do?
I think you should hire somebody. I mean, we're not your consultants. We're just the commission.
Yeah.
If you want to come up with a restoration plan and you can't think of something yourselves that will make this work, maybe hire a landscape architect or.
That's what we did. That's what we did.
Oh, yeah, that's what we did. That's how the restoration plan came into place by a licensed contractor that's very well versed in erosion control. He's the one that's been steering me all along. He missed the soil screening fence because we thought the wattles were gonna do the trick.
So, is there a written plan that he's done for you, or other than the tree planting plan?
No,
Okay.
no, there's not, but I can
So
certainly.
some
have
of
him-
the things that are helpful are delineations to figure out where are the boundaries, where are the things that are the resource areas. That's gonna be required for the process of filing the NOI. Taking into account what is allowed and what isn't allowed by the regulations. And we can guide you in terms of saying, this is, you can look to this regulation, this is what's allowed. But yeah, creating the plan is what you guys need to do in order to be able to move forward or to.
All right, well, I know it by heart, but I'll work with Greg Harris to write a formal one.
Hey, Kristen, I just have one other question. The culvert pipe that he was talking about that you said doesn't comply,
Mhm.
is it the type of pipe, or just that the fact that it is a pipe?
Anytime you put in a new stream crossing, and obviously that's just an intermittent stream, but it is an intermittent stream if there are banks. And it looks like right now, based on those photos, you have actual banks. So that does look like a jurisdictional intermittent stream, possibly more than one. So anytime you put in a new crossing, you have to put in a crossing that's 1.2 times the bank full width, or like bank to bank, that width, 1.2 times that width. And the regulations prefer open bottom. So, I mean, unless you're in agricultural land use, you can skirt that. So if you're in chapter 61 or chapter 61A or something like that.
We are in chapter 61. We're in the hay growing business.
Does it include the forested part of your land?
I don't know.
Look
I
into
think-
that could make a difference, because you do get agricultural exemptions. So just, again, a consultant will help you with these things. They should be able to.
Well, if we're gonna be talking with the DEP anyway, we already have hired this landscape dude. If we're gonna be talking to the DEP, wouldn't they be the best people to tell us what the state requires or wants
Do
us
you
to
remember when Mark Stinson was here a couple weeks ago? You guys
Yeah.
were here when
Yes.
he's like a whiz when it comes to ag exemptions. He's a whiz when it comes to stream crossings. he sounds scary, but he's not. He's great, and he will help you. He's really accessible, and he's wonderful.
So how would we get in touch with him?
He's does Western, so DEP has different regions. We are obviously Western Mass, so he's in our Western region, and he's the circuit rider
Yeah,
of the wetlands department. This DEP has like, lots of different departments, but
Yeah.
he's Western region wetlands circuit rider.
all right. And this might be a stupid question, but before this was even done, those streams were running under the ground, right?
Yes.
So,
And then they were out of the ground just to the right of our path.
no, but if you hadn't built the path, those streams were still running, but they were running probably underground.
Yes.
So would an option be to put them back underground?
If it goes on existing conditions, not prior to construction conditions.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, to put it back to prior to construction.
That would just wash it out.
That would be a culvert.
Well, no, I was just thinking if you push the dirt from the path over the spring and
Oh.
planted stuff on it, would that,
That's Phil. No,
it would put it back to the way it was?
no.
Let me ask you this, because this obviously is, like you said yourself, it's the worst time of year, right? Because
It is bad,
we
yeah.
had thawing and we've had rain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a chance that, well, if all this hydro seeding is done and all this planting is done, that will take care of a large percentage of this problem? So that next year at this time, we wouldn't have all this going on? Is that fair to say?
What do you think, Liz?
I feel like having somebody like Mark Stinson there who has the level of expertise necessary to understand the dynamics at play here.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Missy. I really do. It seems like we could just like restore it to the way it was before and it'd be fine. But unfortunately, because of the removal of the soil structure and the roots and everything else, we can't really put that back. And so we have to find a new way to stabilize everything. And unfortunately, springs, any water body, it's not going to be a constant state of just one way of activity, right? It's going to be flux. And so if we have a wet summer, if we have a wet fall, if we have a hurricane come through, like any one of those hydrological events occurs, any instability that currently exists, which is what we're seeing, is going to become a problem. And so we can't really can't look at one season. We have to look at all.
Well, is Mark, to get Mark Stinson over to the site, do you have to go through a process of application or whatever, or do you just call him and say, hey, can you come out?
You can approach him and.
Okay.
But, it probably would be helpful for us to start thinking about how are we working with you through this process?
Yeah.
Because like Steve said, bad on us, but this
Yeah,
is
done.
it's costing a bloody fortune.
Yeah.
And not to mention, he's living out there, even though we live in Beverly, he's living out there working on that thing every single day. And
absence is not making the hard growth.
no,
on-
absence is not making the hard growth on Earth. No.
It's not.
That's fair.
No.
Yeah, so I think what your best move from tomorrow, if possible, would be to reach out to Mark and sort of
Do we know how to get a hold of him?
I can look it up on the website, I think, unless you have his number handy.
I have it. I'm sure I've got it. Hang on. Let me just tell you really quick. I feel bad giving out his information, but
I could
Well,
also,
I met him
I
when
can
he was
email
here.
you his email
Yeah.
after
Cool.
tonight.
Well, believe it or not, Greg Harris has been so in tune with this project, and he feels, kind of like what Melissa's saying, that we not only working the 200-foot buffer zone, but we were looking into stabilizing the hill and turn it back into its natural forest state.
May I ask this?
Hey, Kristen, I have one other sort of technical question. because the bottom of the path is 195 feet to the water's edge, it would, I don't know, it seems to me like it would take a lot to push the dirt into the river. Is there any forgiveness or leniency on the fact that it's so far from the river?
We don't actually know that because it hasn't been delineated. We don't know if there's a bordering
So we gotta
vegetated
get Mark,
wetland.
we gotta get Mark to the site.
You might have streams, so there could be fill-in streams. You could be in riverfront. We don't actually know where your resource area boundaries are because it hasn't been delineated.
All
What were you
right.
sa- What were you saying?
So my question, the gentleman, remind me of the name of the gentleman that you had just mentioned, not Mark.
Greg Harris?
Was Greg Harris the original person helping you establish this project?
No, I
Okay.
brought him in after.
Once
yeah,
you realized,
yeah,
okay,
After the cease and desist.
okay.
But you said he's done this, so he should
could work
know,
with-
he should know, right, you know, what you're gonna need to show us.
Right.
Yeah,
Put
he.
together a plan.
He basically was impressed that when I started coming to the meetings, I talked to him the next day. He goes, "How did it go?" And he goes, they didn't have you file forms?" He said, "That's a good sign that they trust what you're doing." I said, "Well, now we've seen the spring thaw.
Mhm.
So before we do anything, I really would like to get a hold of Mark
Mhm.
first thing in the morning and see when he can come out because, and then the other thing is, where does the 61A apply? Cause I think
Yeah.
forestry was part of it, cause I was given a wood rights document from her father, cause he's the owner of the land, Tracy Burnham. And so I think it's 61A covers the forestry and the
And the hand.
wood rights and the hay.
Well,
So,
That, there are other processes that you
Yeah.
go through. So you would have been working with the service forester of the region.
oh, that's,
So there, it's not that there's nothing you have to do.
right, no.
It's just there's, there's
No,
one
we-
process, there's another process.
I know
Yeah.
now that we have to work the processes, we're gonna work the processes. It's just like I said, I don't wanna, schedules have been set and I don't wanna lose these guys, but it sounds like it may take longer than their schedules allow. The growing season, all we need is 1 week of 60 degrees, the trees are gonna bud.
But
You know.
before we spend all the money on all that, which is a ton, we should get Mark Stinson to prove that he thinks it's smart or a good,
Yeah.
you know.
And I think
I-
the primary, sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know we're not supposed to put stuff in the chat, but I did put his contact info in the chat, Missy and Steve.
Oh, thank you.
Is that like normal for people to reach out to Mark, or is that something that we're supposed to facilitate?
And we're supposed to facilitate that.
I think for this project, it's kind of so complicated. that-
Well, he heard the project because he was here that one meeting.
Yeah.
Right, so he
I
does have
talked to him a little bit. He basically was very interested in the power company issues, but he didn't really seem he didn't act like it was that big of a deal when I presented my case.
Did we know about the spring at that point? The spring?
No.
No, not that night.
So I feel like really what we're looking at here is that's the thing that's complicating this
Yes.
issue, right? I mean, further complicating the issue to the point
Yeah.
where we now have to take this type of action.
Kristen was,
Maybe we should put a well in.
she was observant because she saw the wet spot. and She said that is 50-degree water. That was a clear indicator to me right then, because it was constantly running.
Mhm.
That's a spring.
I'm just wondering if I should reach out to Mark, be like, we have this situation happening. We would like your input, as. the
I would,
city."
if you want to do that, Jessica, I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe facilitate that, but just bring up the ag exemption possibility and then ask the landowners to confirm whether or not it is an ag, and that would be paperwork that they would have to provide. Cause that would make things a lot easier if you wanted to stick a pipe in the ground, but if they want to put a culvert in, and they're not an ag, that's a whole permit.
So how about I reach out to him first thing in the morning
Okay.
and I try to schedule a site visit with us, with you guys.
And perhaps with your,
And,
Can we do a 3-way call?
yeah, we could do a phone call first if you
Yeah, I
want.
mean, it's, the whole thing is a sense of urgency. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Melissa's right. I mean, I have all these other projects that I want to get done. And I basically, she knows, she's like, "What are you doing next week?" I said, "I'm working the river path. I'm laying jute."
Yeah,
we still would like to get the sides done because hydro seed is important because
Yeah.
that'll stop soil from washing the sides. I mean, and the path bed.
Mhm.
It could
But,
start,
but like she said, before we have that guy bring all that material in the hydro seed.
I'm
we
not
sh-
talking about the trees and the plantings.
No, I'm talking about the hydro seed.
Well, it's
you know-
one truck at the top and he has
No,
400.
no, no, I don't mean, I'm not talking about the truck. I'm just talking about, I don't think we should do anything until we talk to Mark.
All I'm saying is there's a sense of urgency because he wants a hydro seed May 1st through 8th. So if we could get Mark on site by then and work this process.
Of May, 1st through 8th of May? Is that?
Yeah,
what you mean?
because that's when the growing season starts. There's no threat of frost. And we want to get the grass growing up, it is all about soil erosion
Yeah,
control.
I was thinking getting, if he's available, next.
I'm around tomorrow and I'm around all next week.
Yeah.
It'd be great if you could come out
I think it's
tomorrow,
important to
Thursday.
all of us that you have a good outcome.
Yes.
So we're gonna work hard to make sure that we can get you in touch with.
All right,
Mark
well, I
and
appreciate it.
Get you on the right path.
And it may end up being hard armor is the only solution, but I just feel like there has to be a more creative solution than hard armor. There has to be some kind of a bioengineering solution that I'm not an expert. I'm not a landscape architect. I don't know, but I would
I
love to
worry
see creativity.
that We don't know what's under there. Like there might be other seeps, it's such a complex area and it's so wet that I'm afraid of, you have investing all this in that infrastructure and then something else comes up or it shifts or, so.
Or
I-
just
Get another
all
washout.
washes out.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Let us not speak that.
It's amazing though. It still feels like winter and the ferns are all
Yeah.
alive. They're all greened up. Stuff was coming out of the ground today sprouting. It feels warmer down there than it does up on the flat because you don't have the wind chill. It's an amazing valley.
Well, hopefully we can figure it out before Trump wipes out our retirement savings.
So I will
I'll look
reach
for
out
it.
to him first thing
Cool.
and I'll see if he can just come out.
Yeah. And you'd be part of that too, right?
Yeah, I would come too.
Cool.
And then
It's not a 3-seater, so we have to walk down.
I'm gonna aim for next week.
That
Cause
would be-
that gives him enough time and it seems like the weather is not cooperating this week besides
Right.
tomorrow.
Do you advise me still applying the jute to the sidewalls?
What's the condition of the sidewalls right now?
Dry.
And we've had pretty substantial rain.
I mean, Jessica's got a good shot. I mean, it's coming together nice. I hired a couple guys and they actually repelled down the side. They tied their rope to a tree and it helped because it was taking me an hour to do and
This is the
Oh
stuff
my
that's
God.
not.
Yeah.
That's the upslope side. The downslope side is what freaks me out. So on the right side of that photograph, the cut part of the road. On the,
Towards
sl-
the-
yeah, that's the part that worries me.
Yeah.
That's where we're gonna plant, hemlocks to fill this void.
You're
Um,
gonna lose your road. I mean,
Jessica's photography scares me. It's much more severe than in person, less in person.
Oh, boy. Okay, I can see it there.
So the original question, however, was, is it imperative to continue to lay down the jute
On the upside.
on the
on
upslope?
the upside, yeah, so like here.
Yeah, fill all that in.
So if you're saying it's dry and then if it's dry and we get any big rain, then that's gonna start washing, would be
Yeah,
my
so
concern.
this would stabilize it because the stakes, I'm using 6-inch.
Mhm.
It's amazing. It clings it right to it.
Yep.
We ran out of stakes, so I had Missy order, quite a few, and she's like, do we really need that many? I'm like, yeah. Because it's fabric and it won't cling if you don't have enough. It falls out.
The hydro seeding, where will that go? If
That would go
that-
all over everything.
And it
Road-
can go
Over the
through
cover
the
of the
jute?
jute.
We're gonna
or
do
does the jute-
Virginia rye on the path surface
chosen the juke,
Okay,
because it was.
And it, what's cool about it is it has a longer root system than a fescue.
Okay.
And it would cling to all the riprap, and it would solidify it. Like in a couple of years, it would just be this beautiful grass path. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, and Greg Harris asked it, you talked about 1-for-1 for the trees. I went excessive, Missy's concerned about it. It's all about the beautification, so we want to stagger them up the sides of the path, put some on the sidewalls. But is it 3 years that you monitor the trees? They have to stay growing. If they die within that period, we have to replace.
So historically, what we have, or well, since I've been on, what we've done is we've asked for a certain percentage of survival of the overall replacement planting
There you go.
after a 3-year period,
All right, so we estimated 12 to 15 were removed by the excavator. So we're doing 21 extra.
which should give you more than 100% survival rate moving forward.
Yeah. Well, there's some root ball holes on the side banks, which makes it really look ugly, but it's a great place to put the hemlocks. Cause they like, I mean, there's quite a few on the side anyway. And then hardwoods would be staggered on the road bed and on the sidewalls. There are some repair areas where, you know, the ruts just happen. I mean,
Right.
they're gonna continue to happen if we don't get this stabilized. It's dry though for the next week, what I'm looking, drier than it has been.
Yep.
So I'll look forward to hearing from you, Jessica.
Okay.
The good news too about tonight's schedule, I just was reading down. Cause we live on the GTD trails. I noticed you're paying attention to the trails.
Yeah,
Cause I have friends that live there now and they're like, the trails aren't maintained. And all of a sudden, someone must have said something. 'Cause he
What's
said
on the
there's-
agenda? What's on the agenda for the GTD?
It's about trail maintenance.
yeah, I
Cause
hiked it
we,
on Friday.
we're walking them and there's a lot of logs and
Yeah,
trees that fell, you
Mm.
know, I mean.
So are
it's
you
been a-
guys gonna start, are you guys gonna start doing it?
Well, they have a plan.
yeah, we're creating a list of priorities.
I'll call you,
Oh.
miss, I'm gonna probably hit the 99.
Okay, all right, I'm signing off then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks for coming,
you.
both of you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I mean, that was the family that donated land at Greenfield 2.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And her great uncle was a World War II bomber pilot, and he said, you know, if the city of Greenfield doesn't maintain the trails, you can request to have them back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
250 acres. That was the whole reason why the family, which was smart. 'cause
Yeah.
You're forever wild behind your house.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm so glad to see that. I sent it to my buddy.
Nice.
I said, look, it's a topic tonight.
Yeah.
Like I said, it had come up like about a year and a half ago, and we just, then things happened and our agent changed and
Yeah.
stuff just, so it kind of got lost in the process.
I would like to be on that list, because I have a good friend, he's a contractor buddy of mine. We both said, let's go compare lips if we can. So I'm so happy, because I had so much to do. I was on the GTD trails, she's like, what?
Well, we will absolutely put you on our list of people that we will tap for, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're right across the
Yep.
street.
I know we take people up there all the time, and they think it's so beautiful. 'Cause there's
Yeah.
the view of Northfield Mountain, it's pretty.
Yeah.
Yep, it is.
Well, thanks for all your help.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
we're Struggling, we gotta get it done.
Yeah,
We
I know.
understand.
I can't wait to talk to Mark.
Okay, I will
Good.
be in touch tomorrow.
Thanks. so
Okay.
much.
Good night.
You know my cell phone, you have to call me. Yeah, you-
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, next up, Greenfield Wetlands Protection Ordinance Review. Greenfield City Council is in the process of reviewing the city ordinances. The commission is to discuss in-depth potential updates to recommend.
All right. I actually took some time and reviewed this today.
All right.
I looked at it, but I didn't get all the way through it.
Thank you for your reminder emails.
Oh,
So
yeah.
helpful.
All right, what do you got, Emily?
All right, is Kristen still with us? Yeah, I only see owner
Oh.
there. Oh,
I
okay.
see her.
Oh, yeah,
she's
there we
here.
go.
I think owner's missing.
Yeah.
She's still on.
Oh, okay, so she'll probably get off.
Excuse me.
All right, great. So, you gave us the link to the folder that had the past reviews that had been done. Fletcher sent an email to Mitch. I read through that. And that one, I think, is the one we're gonna talk about the most. So you mind if I go over some other stuff first?
Not at all.
All right, so, I found a couple of things that just seemed a little, very minor, but, for exemptions and exceptions and another area, it talked about referring to the 2002 Massachusetts Inland Wetland Replication Guidelines, And it never says or successor documents, but somewhere else, it used the language as may be amended from time to time. So, I'll share my notes around to everybody so you can see exactly the section and the paragraph. But it might, that if we are indeed going to change these, I might recommend that where there is something that's a standard that was in existence, 23 years ago, we should say, or the current document.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're going back to one that's out of date. That's all.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
really simple. Obviously, it doesn't seem like it's the
But
intent.
it's, yeah.
But then we can just say, oh yeah, but, that's been succeeded or
covers,
amended
yeah.
or whatever by this time.
Did we
Okay.
cite that in the bylaw as Jackson et al? Is that 2022 you're talking about, the new one?
Massachusetts Inland Wetland Replication Guidelines.
Oh yeah, there's there's 2022. That's new. That's really outdated.
Yeah,
That's why
it's
it
really
should say,
outdated.
Yeah,
should
yes,
say,
yeah, no, it's good call, Emily.
So it's
Yeah.
a very simple thing, but that, that's sort of a common sense thing. Let's see. Yeah, there's a couple of places where I found that, so I will share that around. Okay, here's another, just a simple, like, procedural thing. It says under 42.3-4D, procedures under this chapter are the same as the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. And then 1, the applicant shall submit 7 copies of each application.
Right.
So it says that in one place, and then in another place, it says, that you can submit it by electronic filing. So I would say one of the things we also want to go through the bylaws is to go through the language and determine whether we still need to have multiple copies. In another section, 42.3-6, under coordination with other boards, it says that we are to take those copies that are provided by the applicant and give them to the other boards as necessary, like planning or zoning or whoever. So given that nobody wants paper, we're
Yeah.
using electronic, we probably just want to change the language to say what we want it to say. So I would,
Is this for an NOI or is this for like anything?
It was very annoying, but
this one.
'cause I know we used to get.
Yeah, it does distinguish RDAs and NOI and everything else.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, 'cause
so
I thought it was like 3.
ours says 7.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, for a while, it was. 'cause
Okay.
Every commissioner got one,
Yeah.
plus the agent got one,
Oh,
and I think like Eric got one. or something.
Yeah.
So
And
it's just,
you don't want to put the burden of all that duplication on the town,
Yeah.
the city, because it is expensive over and over and over again.
yeah.
But at this point, we're
Yeah.
probably using almost no
Yeah,
paper,
I'm not
so we
like
just want to.
delivering things to other departments or
well,
anything.
that's what I was just saying, that after we would just, what do you do with it? We just end up
Yeah.
recycling it.
And then the question I had was too, based, following through that is, do you end up giving the applications to other departments
No.
in the city?
No.
It's just DEP usually that gets them,
Yeah,
right?
DEP, and then I have a physical file and then I have my electronic.
Okay.
But
so
they send it to DEP, like I'm not,
Right.
I'll do stuff, like there's a portal that I do,
Mhm.
but they're supposed to mail it on their own to DEP.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
They actually
Yeah.
send it to DEP.
Mhm.
Okay. So under coordination with other boards, there's language there that we probably just want to review and, clean up.
Yep.
So that it's not like,
Quite so antiquated?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
20th century language.
Yes.
Somebody had said
With
something
your
about adding
stone tablets.
Zoom or whatever.
yeah.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. And then there was another section where it says,
By mail, electronic, or hand delivery, the applicant shall give written notice to the property owner. This is for the abutters.
Mhm.
So the notice for abutters doesn't have 1,000,000 copies and it allows for electronic. So just there's some language that seems like, oh yeah, this is just fine and we could do this versus the ones that say 7 physical copies
Right.
that are passed everywhere. So I'm sorry, it's
Kristen, are
circulate
you
this
talking to
before.
us?
Do you need something, Kristen, or?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Emily, does the bylaw say anything about whether it can be certified mailings?
Actually, that is one thing that a butter note annotation, the language didn't actually call out, which is typical, where you usually have to have the certification either by hand and then get a signature that they've received it.
Yeah, but
So-
certified mailings are not certified receipts, but I always get them mixed up. But there's one that's easier and cheaper.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, and you're right, that doesn't include that, so that's probably something we would need to include as well. Sorry. All right, okay, then. Terms of Aqua Blue. Oh, okay. One thing that reminded me of some conversation we've had recently is under notice and hearings, 42.3-7J4, terms of applicability, renewals, revocations, and amendments. The committee is in an appropriate case may combine the decision issued under this chapter with the permit, DOA, ORAD, or certificate of compliance issued under the Wetlands Protection Act and regulations. So to me, that sounded like when we're doing a decision that's based on our bylaws and our, what's it called? Our warrant or whatever.
Ordinance?
Our ordinance, thank you. We can also combine it with the DEP filing. So I feel like that came up recently when we were talking about what's the jurisdiction here. Maybe it was even those fellows who have the pile of brush in the yeah, or maybe I'm thinking one of the
Bernie
times when
Adams.
we were dealing with a intermittent stream. But it is good to I wanted to note that, and I don't think we have to change this, that we can combine those, we can make decisions together on the two. So that's okay.
Yeah, like I was saying, and thinking the last meeting, that some towns like Amherst, for example, they issue 2 separate special conditions, one under the Wetlands Protection Act and one under the town bylaw. And oftentimes they're exactly the same. And it's just like, do we want to do that or are we good combining them?
So specifically, oh, good, that's why this rang a bell. In our bylaws, we can do one decision. We do not have to do 2. We can combine them.
We have to vote on both, but we don't have to, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
So we
it
still
says we
have to
can,
vote on both,
On
but
the boilerplate and the special.
we
Okay.
can combine the decision
Decision.
issued under this chapter.
Okay.
So maybe we need to look at more of the language than I called out here, but it sounds like there's a way we can do that. Okay. And then, oh, yeah. One of the things that I just wanted to note, I was also reading it just to understand it too, so I'm just giving you my observations, is that we can assign special resource area status to sites that perform unique resource functions and condition protections for those special resource areas. So this made me think actually of our friends who have the stream restoration, bank restoration project, the Jehovah's Witness Church, and that is undermining their driveway. And when we looked at that stream, it's really kind of an important stretch of that river. So not saying that we should do that, but if we run into situations like that, where we see that an area is particularly of importance or special, we can call it out as a site that has special functions. So that's something that as a commission, we might want to think about how we would handle that or what our priorities are. And that might be something that goes into our prioritization and conservation
Yeah.
thought too. So that if we think about like just looking at the land in the town and say, well, these are really important, like vulnerable areas that we want to make sure that are handled appropriately. And, you know, maybe our rivers are ones because that's so important for flood resilience with climate change. So that's 42.3-7. I. All right. And then
But you think it's written fine?
I think it's fine. I'm just
yeah.
noting it because
Yeah.
I went through this all very closely. Let's see. Okay, and then thinking of the Aldi's issue with having it be so difficult for us to monitor it. The provision under 42.3-10 security allows us to ask for as a part of a permit issued under this chapter, in addition to any security required by any other municipal or state board or official, the commission may require that the performance and observance of the condition imposed hereunder be secured wholly or in part by one or more of the methods described below. A surety by bond, deposit of money, other undertaking of financial responsibility, or by restriction, by conservation restriction, easement, or other covenant enforceable in a court of law. So we have the power both to require that people put aside money to make sure that something is going to go as planned, or require them to conserve land or put an easement or something like that. So that those are much bigger powers than I realized we had. And
Wait, how
I mean,
do-
I think of, you know, maybe we can ask them to, we can require that they hire a consultant to do wetland delineation or something. But these are above and beyond, and they give us more power to make sure that both the project is going to be completed appropriately, like that, you know, just as an example, not that I'm advocating this, but the hotel example, you know, if we had had specific concerns, say there was a wetland right next to it, and we wanted to make sure that nothing went wrong, then some money would have had to have been set aside. And when they abandoned the project, that money would have been there to make sure that, oh, if when it was demolished and something went wrong, then it could have been taken care of. And then by the same token, as we think about conservation in the town as a whole, it's really important to know that we have the power to require that people conserve land. Like we could say, well, you want to build these 3 houses and you want to build in the resource area. So we're going to require that as part of, you know, whatever the mitigation thing is, you would conserve the balance of your land or something along those lines. So that's sort of a high level power that we could potentially come into play. So I don't think that should change. I'm just calling that to your attention.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, I'm getting to the end, I promise. So the next part is the fines, fees, and enforcement. And so I just, you know, this all looks fine, but I do want to clarify that there is a $500 fine per day if they violate an enforcement order that we've put on them, whoever it is.
If they violate.
If they
Enforcement.
violate the enforcement order that we put on them. If they don't, for every day that they're not coming into compliance with an enforcement order, that's $500 per day.
So,
And then, go ahead, which question?
so this would require that we observed them not being in compliance with their
If there's a
order of
whole-
conditions
Yeah,
first.
and we
Okay.
would have had to go through all of the procedures to get to the point of doing an enforcement order.
Okay.
Which is long,
Sure.
you know, there's a lot of steps that gets you there.
Mhm.
Then, say we did put an enforcement order on somebody, and every day that they don't do it, we can fine them $500 per
Okay.
day. Separate from that, I believe, and this I want to maybe talk to like MACC or something just to make sure. But one of the questions that people had before about our ordinance was, it says 500 here, but 300 here.
Right.
They are separate. My interpretation is
Different
it is
beasts. entirely.
$500 a day for not complying with the enforcement order, but the state maximum is $300 a day for not being in compliance with the wetland regulations and the Rivers Protection Act. So
Okay.
for violating the law and the regulations, someone can be fined $300 a day. For violating our enforcement, they can be fined an additional $500 a day.
So
People could be
those-
accruing $800 a day And that's per violation.
Right.
So if they have multiple violations, then that could be thousands of dollars a day.
So ours comes into play after they've already violated the state.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Right, so the
that-
state, right, 'cause
Then,
this,
then
in-
we can,
But they have to have been cited for it.
right.
But you can be cited whenever, you know, as long as, I don't know what the limitations are on some things, but if it's a continuing condition, that as soon as we notice it, then that's when they get cited for
Yep.
it. So I want to confirm that with MACC. Maybe I'll like make a call or something to make sure I'm interpreting that correctly.
Mhm.
But seeing it there in parallel, I think it's the two different things.
that makes
'Cause
sense.
Yeah, I was questioning.
Exactly. It makes sense. Why is it 300 here and 500 there?
Does it say where the money goes?
No, I don't,
So
I
the-
didn't notice where the money goes.
I thought the
It's probably, well, no. that's a good
the
question.
500 would go to our account that doesn't otherwise get replenished, was my understanding.
Yeah, that's what I would hope
Yeah.
or would want written
Right.
in.
Yeah,
Because that could be used to purchase land and there's no other way to get money in there, really.
And take
Right.
care of maintenance that doesn't
Unless
have a
the-
trust on it, or
Unless the town votes. to
What'd you
give
say?
us-
or
Sorry.
take care of maintenance for properties that don't have trusts
Yeah.
associated with them.
Yeah,
Yep. And the 300 though, does that go to the state? Okay.
I don't
Yes.
know. I would
That's what it
presume
sounds
so.
like.
Seems
I would
like,
presume
but-
so. So those are some questions for us to clarify. Okay, great. So the one that I thought we would probably talk about the longest is the one that Fletcher brought up. In our bylaws, or our ordinance as it stands, and this is how we've been interpreting it, so we're not getting anything wrong. Intermittent streams are classed along with the 200-foot resource area. In some towns, that's how it's done. In other towns, I'm not sure what it's the majority, but it sounds like maybe this is the majority. If intermittent streams are protected, it's part of the 100-foot buffer area,
Not
Not-
resource.
not the river resource area.
Yeah,
So maybe-
intermittent streams get a 100-foot buffer anyway. So if we were to administer additional protection, like under a bylaw or ordinance, it would have to be separate. So I think that's what's different about our city ordinance. It's a 200-foot riverfront.
Yeah, exactly. And there are other examples of towns like Hopkinton was the one that Fletcher called out, that simply add in the ephemeral streams into the paragraph that talks about the buffer, the resources that have a buffer area zone.
Well,
buffer area.
just so riverfront's not a buffer zone. It's a resource
I know.
area.
I know, that's why. So some towns put the ephemeral stream into into the group of resources that have a buffer zone that is protected. So I don't know, Kristen, maybe you can correct me, but to my eye, it looked like without that protection, intermittent streams are not defined as having a buffer zone area that is protected for 100 feet. Is that your understanding, or is that?
That's under the Wetlands Protection Act, so it shouldn't make any difference, because the bylaw would just be additional protections beyond the state. Because usually it's like federal regulations are like meh, state regulations are pretty good, local regulations are the strongest. So if we have anything in our bylaw or ordinance, it would be better than the state. So I guess I thought you were trying to say that our riverfront was not a resource, but a buffer zone. That's what I thought you were trying to say, and
No, I'm saying that Fletcher said we should change it so that the ephemeral streams are not classed with the resource area, but that they should be moved over into the group that defines it as having a buffer area. Is it buffer zone or buffer area? I'm getting mixed up with forestry stuff.
it's buffer zone.
Buffer zone, group, which is how some towns handle it. But it sounds like that doesn't raise the protection if the ephemeral
sounds like it
streams
would lower it,
already have
Yeah, it seems like
that
it would
under the
lower
wetland
it.
protection.
The
Act.
difference between a buffer zone and a resource area, so like take Sturbridge, for example, their bylaw they require people to file permit applications when they can be as far as 500 feet from a resource area and they have to file. So the difference between a buffer zone and a resource area is if you're within the buffer zone, you're in our jurisdiction. It's not really like a resource area, it's just you're in our jurisdiction, so you have to file with us. So do we want to see more applications and not really be able to do anything about it?
Yeah,
Um,
okay, so hang on a second. So the resource area is something that we can dictate what needs to be done in order to protect the resource area, but the buffer zone is just something that basically they gotta tell us that they're doing it and we gotta be like,
You can
Yep.
do conditions though, right? Because like if it's in the buffer zone and they do an RDA, you could be like, oh, it's work within the buffer zone, but it's not removing, filling, dredging. But then you can add special conditions still.
how is that,
So,
how does that differ from the resource area?
Well, the resource area is like hands down.
Completely hands off?
Yeah.
Okay.
and
And
there's
the RD
performance
The
standards.
RDA buffer zone is like, you have the option of being like, yeah, go ahead, don't worry about it. Or setting conditions.
But
there's
ultimately,
more
we
flexibility.
And they
can
don't
set the
have to
conditions.
pay, they have to pay for the NOI. They don't have to pay for the RDA.
Ah,
So it's like their benefit too, because it's not.
so if it's in buffer zone, in order to do work in it, you can do an RDA and say, you're doing work within the buffer zone, but it's not affecting the
Yeah, and
functioning.
you all would decide if it's indeed not affecting.
Okay, but, sorry.
I was just, so if somebody's, has a project and the only thing they have is an intermittent stream, they have to file an NOI. Right now, they have to file an NOI because they're in the resource area.
Local
Correct.
But
NOI,
otherwise,
yeah.
they wouldn't have to, they would still have to come before us, to make sure it's okay, but if it was just in buffer zone, if that was the only thing that was, that they had.
So
that-
I
is that- is
didn't
that right? You
realize,
said-
so intermittent streams have a buffer zone.
100 foot, just like a wetland.
they already-
Because it's a wet, okay.
Bank, the inland bank has a 100 foot
bank,
buffer zone.
because of the
Yeah.
bank. Okay. All right, good to know.
And, but currently, our bylaws are set up to identify an intermittent stream as a resource area.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
The same as a regular river, right?
Yeah, so we mirror 10.58 of the Wetlands Protection Act. So all of those performance standards, and there are many for riverfront area under the Wetlands Protection Act, we basically say we're gonna apply all of those to intermittent streams under our ordinance.
Mhm.
So actually it's a pretty hefty.
Here, I'm gonna
um,
read one of the other examples from the other towns that have it in the buffer zone, just so we've heard it. Okay, examples of towns with 100-foot buffer for intermittent streams. Air, adjacent upland resource area, shall include lands with 100 feet of any freshwater, wetland, marsh, flat, wet meadow, bog, swamp, vernal pool, bank, reservoir, lake or pond of any size, creek, intermittent stream, beach or land under water bodies, and lands within 200 feet of perennial rivers and streams. So that's defining it as an adjacent upland resource area. And, okay, here's another one. Wetlands that are subject to protection under the act include any area within 100 feet of and this is Brimfield, swamp, marsh, forested wetland, vernal pool, pond, or intermittent stream, also known as the buffer zone. So that's the way that some towns handle it. I'm not advocating for either.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I've read it. That way, if you guys think, oh, well, Emily, you're interpreting it wrong, you could say.
Have we historically had any issues with treating intermittent streams as resource areas?
Tristan? I was gonna-
I mean, I can think of one project where it was up at the industrial
Yeah.
park and they wanted to basically relocate the stream and it did not meet the performance standards. And we said, there's no way you can permit this unless you file it as a limited project.
I think what it was when we were talking about with Fletcher was that we kind of were lenient on some of them because it wasn't, and so then when we were tough on other people, we're like, oh, we're not keeping consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
more like, maybe we should, if it was just the buffer zone, then we could always add in things if we,
But we can't take them out.
but we couldn't, right,
Yes.
and to just be, a little kind of lenient was getting like a little iffy, because.
The other thing that was in there was a map, which is nice,
Mhm.
showing the perennial streams and the intermittent streams and their buffers.
Right.
or no,
Or
just
just-
their riverfront areas.
Which it looks like we don't have a lot of intermittent. I mean,
I counted and it's 13.
So
Mhm.
it's not the preponderance.
But a lot
13
of- but a lot of
intermittent
them
I
are
think
not.
there's more than that.
but a lot of them are not mapped,
Maybe that's all that's
Yeah.
showing up on this,
Yeah,
this
I think
particular
that-
map, too.
That's the
Yeah.
problem, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and so then people don't even know, I mean, they apply for something and they don't even know that they haven't, because it's not
Right,
mapped
right.
anywhere.
But just to add to Fletcher's point that I think you're saying was his point, not all intermittent streams are created equal. Like it seems like
Mhm.
some's just a trickle, while some is like a pretty well-defined.
Well, that's that was what, when it was just kind of a trickle, to
Yeah,
have to put all the riverfront,
Yeah.
Mhm.
standards on them was like,
yeah.
I think it was in his email, and we obviously should all just read it, but that also sometimes you think, should we have types or sizes? You know, like if it's under 200 feet, should it have a different standard than over 200 feet, something like that?
I don't know. I feel like intermittent streams are defined in the act, and getting into the difference between ephemeral and intermittent and perennial, I don't know.
But in the act, they're not considered a resource, right?
Not the riverfront, but the intermittent stream itself is defined under the act.
But it only has a 100-foot buffer.
But it's inland bank. That's the difference. So inland bank is the resource area and then there's land underwater for the stream channel, but there is no riverfront for intermittent streams. And then our bylaw just says for intermittent streams, we're gonna copy what the act has for riverfront for perennial streams.
Which is like hardcore if it's just.
It is pretty hardcore, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean, if buffer zone, well, you said we don't really have that much dirt, I mean,
Well, so the buffer zone, they have to submit an RDA. They have to,
right?
which opens up the floor for conditions that
Right,
they would
so-
have
so-
to meet.
So it might be easier for us to have buffer zone and make it harder than to have riverfront and try to make it less,
Yes.
Right. I see what you're saying.
you know, I mean, if it's an actual intermittent stream that's kind of flowing, we could make it,
Right,
More
you could
robust.
beef,
Tougher,
beef-
yeah.
The
beef it up.
conditions.
but if it's a trickle, then it's hard to, don't, whatever,
Yeah, I
make
got
it
you.
less.
I take you.
Yeah.
The piece we're giving up is that second 100 feet
Right,
Right.
and the across the board expectation that there's gonna be protections on that stream.
right, across the, yeah, because we could add in 100 feet, right? I mean, that could be a condition that we add in, I mean.
Yeah.
If we decided that that was a really important
Yeah.
stream that flowed more than we thought it did.
Right.
The only difference is if we don't implement a resource area around intermittent streams like we currently do, then there are no performance standards that we can uphold the activity to. So right now, any activity that's within 200 feet of an intermittent stream under the ordinance, we have performance standards that the applicant has to adhere to, which if we change that, those are all out the window. If it's just a buffer zone, there are no performance standards. So
Are
that's the difference.
Are there any former applicants that have been onerously negatively impacted by the intermittent stream being designated as a resource area?
I think it depends on the perspective.
I'm not, so to be clear, the previous owner of my home was definitely before you and
Okay.
saying, that's just a runoff,
Right, yeah.
right?
I have
So,
an example.
oops, I'm sorry. Say again?
I have an example.
Okay.
So there is somebody that is trying to submit an NOI they want to build a single family home on a lot that has yet to be subdivided. And it turns out that this person who's selling off the lot has been trying to for a while, and a couple came to Mitch with a design. And they went through this whole process and I think hired someone to design the home, had it delineated, all this stuff. And then at some point, Mitch told them it was not buildable because it was riverfront. And now this new guy is coming to me and it's come up, he's like, well, I guess they already delineated these wetlands, what happened with those people? And cause I don't know the performance standards, you know, I'm like, you have to hire a wetland scientist and have them tell you whether or not you could adhere to the performance standards. And if you can, then you submit an NOI.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where it's at, but I know that Mitch, like, there was some
Yeah.
not happy feelings between the people that.
Are we gonna, like, I mean, if we're gonna revise that section, are we gonna do that tonight?
I don't think it would be, I would not advise that we do so.
Yeah, I feel like this is a huge question, and there's like the 10.58 section of the Wetlands Protection Act is like 11 pages long. It's the longest section of the act,
Yeah.
other than the definitions section. It's really detailed. I mean, there are mad exemptions and grandfathered exemptions clauses, and it's super complicated. We could look at other bylaws, like Town of Groton has really interesting wording on vernal pool protection. I know that's a different resource area, but they have like, you know, if you have an existing lawn, you can go up to 50 feet, but if you don't, you can go up to 100 feet, and that's it. We could play with different ideas, but I don't know if we're gonna get there tonight. I feel like we could talk about this for about 6 hours.
I think it's sometime in May, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like we've still got time to like hash it over.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like this opportunity will come up again. And so if we can't settle on something that we find to be palatable this go round, we can continue to work on it.
Do you know
Yeah,
how often they do this?
I was gonna say, I'm not sure it comes up that often.
No.
I don't think, do you remember, Kristen? Because I think that was one of the things we were talking about making some changes, and then there was no.
Yeah, we talked about this a few years ago, but we decided not to touch that. We were talking about a couple other things, but I don't think we decided to touch that. I think we decided at the end it was better to be safe than sorry. And that was maybe like 2 years ago. Liz, when is the date that we have to have changes submitted by?
And they want May 23.
That is actually sooner than I thought. So we would need to like by our next meeting or 2 meetings from now have all of our,
Ducks in
how
a
would we
row.
do this? Like comments in a draft and then discussions, or like how do we do this?
Yeah, so it sounds to me like if this is something that we want to do and do now, everybody should, first of all, we're going to eschew all of the other stuff and focus. And my recommendation would be that we don't worry about any of the other changes unless somebody's got double extra time, and that we focus strictly on the documentation that Kristen was just talking about and really figure out if we can do this in a way that makes sense and have it pulled together by, let's see, they'd want it by May 23.
Are you talking about the riverfront stuff or,
Mhm.
okay.
The perennial stream. I would
So that would
recommend
be 13th.
do make the other two very minor changes though.
Yeah, the wording changes, I think.
You think it
seem-
would be easy
Yeah,
enough?
I feel like if
Yeah.
the last time we talked about this 2 years ago or whenever it was, I was sort of like amenable to changing that part of the riverfront on intermittent streams, and now I feel differently. Now I feel like I don't really want to back it up. I'd rather keep it stronger than make it weaker.
All right,
I'm inclined in that direction actually
Yep.
too, partly because of climate change.
cool. I'm totally okay with that. And then we just get somebody mad sometimes.
I was definitely kind of like, this is crazy when they first started, but now I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think if we went back, I
Mhm.
doubt anybody would go replace those protections.
Right.
And we're actually in a good position to do better do our job to protect the resources by having that.
But that does bring up a different challenge that we will have to address, which is this particular example that you have set before us.
Yeah, so this will be interesting because he's like, at first I was kind of like,
There are
trying to tell him
mitigation
that it's-
options that are available to people. You know, there's alternatives that, I mean, just going,
It's not impossible to
It will
develop. a
probably
river-
come before us
Yeah.
in the near future, and you guys can hear him out and
Sure.
what
I mean,
his
depending
plan
on-
is.
because we can always make some we can allow them to do whatever they want, if not whatever they want, but if they, you know, if we tell them, you know, you can do this, but you have to do this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so
so,
we could
so he'll,
make them
he'll
do
be
stuff like
coming, but it is kind of, you know, just to exemplify like the past.
Yeah.
Those people were very upset, and then to have him come and get, maybe even get a permit, whereas they,
Oh, if they find, I mean,
well, I don't know
Okay.
if they would, but I'm just saying, like, this is just an example of
What I had
where it's
asked.
come up and
Right,
it's
right,
been like a
right.
negative
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Right, and so
that's
we
great.
do want to figure out how to ameliorate that, but I don't know that, it sounds to me that taking this out of the resource area category is the way to do that. Is that a fair, like,
I'm not sure what you mean.
taking the intermittent streams out of the resource area category in our bylaws?
You
Does
mean the
not-
riverfront for associated with intermittent streams?
Well, if you guys kept it the way it is, then it is kind of like Erica was saying, like a case by case basis, figuring out how, you know, to make it work.
It'd be
so that-
interesting, just as a thought experiment, to take that property and just change the buffers and look at it as though that change had been made, because it is only 100 feet more.
right.
And it is a difference of the buffer zone versus a resource area, which has much more strict regulations. But would a project even still be viable? You know, how much difference is, would it really be a good place to build, even if it was just like the regular wetlands?
I mean, I personally wouldn't have chosen this lot,
Yeah.
but he's pretty locked in, like, I think he's excited about it. What I don't understand is what are the performance standards?
Well, there aren't any for the buffer zone. That's what Kristen was saying.
Yeah, 10.58. You want me to pull them up? I mean, we can talk about it if you want.
Yeah. and
The
I
other
don't-
thing is too with this like climate change resiliency.
That's nice.
I don't need to go that deep, I
Oh,
just think
okay.
that,
It's a lot, Jessica. It's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
If you want to read them, it's 10.58 of the.
yeah,
wetlands.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna like sleep with it and
Yeah.
absorb
Put it under your pillow and just absorb it.
Throw it up into your
Um,
phone.
But just one last thought with like climate change resiliency and thinking about that kind of stuff, I just feel again, like I don't think reeling back our protections is really the direction we should be going. And again, I have changed my mind on this over the last 5 years, but
It's hard enough to get people to believe that, oh yeah, it is a bad idea to impinge on wetlands. And our wetlands are going to be more vulnerable and our rivers are gonna be more volatile.
Yeah.
So, intermittent streams aren't probably the most problematic of waterways we're dealing with, but they're not gonna get better.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I have something to add to this topic. Christy Moore told me that she's requesting that they have a Parks and Recreation Facility chapter in the ordinance, and it includes conservation land. And
Mhm.
she said it doesn't really make sense because there's a lot of things that aren't even on the conservation land, like facilities, and also just like language. So she's recommending that conservation land has its own chapter and gets pulled out of the Parks and Rec chapter.
That probably is, I think that sounds,
It makes
because
logical
there's a
sense.
lot of things that can't be done on our property.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like different rules,
yeah,
basically, and that's
yeah.
what she was saying.
It seems like
Um,
a pretty heavy lift to be able to do that in a month and a week or
But-
something.
But I don't know what would be required of us, because I think there's, I thought there was like its own little section within the chapter, and maybe she was saying to just pull that section out and make it its own chapter.
If it's just making something a separate paragraph,
Yeah, like its own thing.
that's fine.
Um,
If it's something that we have to draft and add to, that'd be really hard for us
Okay.
to do in
Yeah.
this time, I think.
Okay, she gave me like all these things. I'm like, which one is it?
So
Um,
is she,
It does make sense to me.
so it seems like we at one point had, maybe it was the Green River area. And it was observed that the rec department was impinging into the conservation area and mowing in an area they were not supposed to be mowing. So it does seem like the two areas are sort of connected, but I don't know.
They are to some degree, but there's different regulations for the different, I mean. Yeah, I mean.
It'd be nice to have that more clearly delineated,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
because it makes sense that that would be separate in our ordinances. Also, I mean, it's a little unclear to all of us, like, who takes care of them and what's our responsibility? So it'd be great to have a better understanding of what all the processes are for us to.
Yep.
Not saying that's your job.
She just gave you the spotlight.
Yeah.
Well, I was
Yeah.
waiting for the call to action.
I would love to take a look at this. Can you send
Okay.
this?
Yeah, I don't have the attachment. She handed it to me, so I'll have to get the attachment.
Okay.
And,
Well, this is chapter 322. I can look it up. It's on, it should be available on our
yeah, so
website,
one's
right?
the original, but yeah, so one's the
Oh,
original.
and then there's the,
So I had to write original at the top. And then, I think this was her, what
Suggestion.
she wanted to happen.
Okay.
Remove conservation land from this section
Would
and
you-
create a
would you
new
scan
chapter
it and send
specifically.
that to me?
Yeah,
don't
I
have the
will.
Red Oak Computer
And then
Drive.
there,
Yeah, put it in the drive so we can all see it.
okay, and then there's this, changes to various chapters in the, so, yeah, I don't know what that is, but.
So if she's done the work for us and we're happy with it.
Perfect.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I think part of it maybe is that they have the open space and recreation plan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it jumbles
Yeah,
us all
it
together,
puts it
but yet
together.
they're really different. you
There's
know?
different rules and
Um,
stuff
and
around each.
And it does sort of list which ones are conservation, but, you know.
Yeah. Okay, great. So to be continued.
Yep.
I'll add it to the agenda for the next meeting. Yeah, okay.
Cool. We've got, looks like we've got two things left on here. Can we shave them down in time or do we need to go in depth?
Oh,
Oh.
the erosion at Green River Conservation Area
Yep.
literally will take me like 2 minutes.
Mhm.
I have an
Go.
idea on that one too. So let's do that and then we'll see about the other piece.
Okay, so we'll do that. Are we skipping ahead? Skipping ahead. All right, so, is this it? Christy and Kelly made laminated warning signs for the erosion landslide, and I hung them
Are
up.
they
Awesome.
DPW or rec or?
Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec. Sorry, I just say her name like everyone should know.
Yeah.
Christy Moore,
She's the
right?
director of Parks
Yes.
and Rec.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm like,
We like that.
So this is, I'm at the edge, oh wait, I'm not sharing.
I
Yeah.
see.
So this, wait, what's happening?
Allow multiple, I'm still sharing.
Oh.
Let me unshare this silly map. There we go.
Wait. All right, so this photo is, I'm at the edge of Murphy Park.
Gotcha.
And
Yep.
so like you walk into the woods and see that, that's the ledge. So I hung a sign right there, so you can see it from
Good.
park. This is, of course, the far other end of this ledge, hiking up the trail and see the trails right here. So you can go to this side
Mhm.
and, woo. So that's the first sign.
So, wait,
Okay.
so you can go around that area and go.
You can totally go over here.
Straight
It's
to the
like
right of that.
open
Okay.
and easy breezy,
Okay.
hiking. And then, so that's what it looks like.
Okay.
And then, so I hung 4, so you see like the ones, what we just looked at, then a big space this, then you can see the orange tape in
On
the
that.
distance.
Yep.
And there's the other one.
Awesome.
So.
Oh, yeah, and
oh,
then.
what's that? What
Yay.
is that? What was? is
Look
that-
at this. So this tree like was all,
All kinds of
had
critters.
all these little like,
Mm.
rotted whole things and, I don't know, it looks to me like a little lightning bug.
I
kind of
thought
thing.
that too.
They were all over this tree.
Huh.
And I didn't know I put those in the, and then I took a picture of this, which I also meant to take out. Look, it's like a little hole that's like spilling.
Butt rot, getting ready to get established.
So that's that.
Great, sorry.
Okay.
So thank you to Christy and,
Kelly.
Kelly for doing those for us.
Yeah.
Can we get a PDF of that and post it to our website along with that trail to say, be aware that there's part of this trail closed?
Okay, so what do you want me to do? Get the PDF. So get the PDF.
So you're gonna go through Mordor. Yeah, so just if they could send you like the
PDF of it?
PDF
Okay.
and then associate that PDF on the website with the area itself, because like the areas are listed on our website.
Yes.
And just like, just an extra layer of caution and, you know, be aware that there is an issue at this particular hiking trail. Watch out for these signs. Don't fall off the cliff for the love of.
Okay, so here's the Green River NIMS.
Mhm.
So you click on it, oh, and it brings you to the map. Trail map,
And then,
and
like-
then maybe like warning?
Yes, perfect.
Right.
And then
Okay.
just link to that sign. And
Okay.
yeah, just again, just a layer of
Totally.
coverage.
Okay.
Kristen, you seem highly amused.
I really liked your Mordor joke.
I do what I can.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so-
that's done.
Yeah, my other
Awesome.
thing was that there is other height, so there doesn't need to be anything like right at Murphy Park saying, don't go in here at all, because there's other places to go. Right, I mean.
They can walk by that without
Okay.
going near it.
Okay, so
Okay,
that we don't
If
need one
that
like
answers
right.
your question.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to rope it off necessarily if, you know, people just need to like use their eyes.
Yeah. Well,
Which, you know, and I'm saying that like, cause I know some people aren't self-aware.
Right.
yes, yes.
That's-
Situational awareness is not as
Yeah.
common as you'd like.
pervasive as you'd like it to be. Oh.
Okay,
And then conservation property maintenance. Well, we now have a new contact of somebody who is willing to go out and do the maintenance for us.
great.
Well, I think he said
Yeah.
he was hoping to-
Yeah, he didn't seem like he wanted to until this project was done.
Yeah, that's fair. But
I did finally email Lincoln Fish and I have not heard back from him because I just emailed today. But if he has any, I asked him if he had any lists of things that we had wanted to do or if he was inspired or something, just to touch base with him since he'd been engaged with the project.
great. That's a perfect direction.
So I took a bunch of photos and I'm just gonna, I have not thinned this out. Cause like I went Friday, it took me so long. Kristen, way longer than you said it would take. I was on there for like 2 hours. And by the end, I'm like, oh my God, just get me out of here.
Yeah, it can be confusing with the loops and stuff.
Well, cause
The
I
loops
also
do-
was like, I was like using all trails, trying to figure out where these like spots in the map
Yeah.
Mitch did, and I was like, I'm not there, you know, whatever. It was beautiful and great, but by the end I was like, get me out of here. But there was a few down trees, and it seemed like the one that Mitch had taken a photo of had already been addressed. So someone went out there with a chainsaw. But there's a couple that could be worked on. But then the biggest spot that I noticed was not a spot I think we can like fix. It looked like giant, I don't even know what they were, white pine or whatever.
Oh,
like,
yeah, the white pine. Yeah.
yeah, fell down like with uproot, you know, root mass over like a wetland zone that had trail. So like to connect from one trail to the other trail, you had to like go kind of through, and it's all like a super wet area.
I think
Um,
everyone's been cutting, like you can go left right before you come down the little hill and that's where the tree is. You can go left and avoid it. And that's a shortcut and everyone just does that. They just like, that
Yeah.
whole leg of the trail is cut off now.
Maybe we should alter where the trail goes, because we don't really want people going through
Well,
wetlands, right?
yeah.
No,
Yes.
no, there's another trail that goes, that goes to the left. It's
I'm
like, there's
just
so
gonna-
many loops out there, like,
Yeah, and
it's-
it didn't help I didn't like know where I was. I'm like, where the hell am I? Like,
Makes you feel any better. Mike and I had that experience as well. And we were like, "Oh, I think we might be on private property now."
Not private property.
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's like a lack of arrows in certain places. That
Yeah.
like better. I'm just trying to find. There was some. Here we go.
There you go. Yeah.
So see, am I sharing?
No.
So
mm-mm.
the path goes by where the roots are up, come up. That's what it looks like.
The eastern white pine is across the whole trail.
Yeah.
And it's a huge tree. It's like not easy to get around it.
Is this look like what you're talking about, Kristen?
Yeah, that looks like you're facing the other. So like can I annotate on this? I don't know how to annotate. Wait, I'm in Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Well, I get confused. There's Teams and
All you need to
Zoom.
know about where we're at here right now.
How do I annotate? I don't know how to annotate. I don't know if I can, but
I don't think so.
anyways, behind the tree and to the right, there's a trail that goes over there. So if you're doing the loop
Oh, over here,
counterclockwise,
yeah.
which most people do, and you're coming towards that tree and you don't want to cross it there, you can just bang a left and go, and there's the trail connects to where this trail would connect anyway. It's a little bit shorter.
Change because the tree.
Yeah, like to me, this looks like a permanent, like maybe some better arrows or something need to happen.
To
Because
redirect people.
I was like, I think this is, no. I was like, did I take? Okay, so like this, I was trying to navigate around these fallen trees and it's like puddle, you know, like I had to like go really odd ways to try to get back to the trail. And I'm sure, Kristen, it's probably a lot easier than what I did.
No, I think that you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, I know enough to wear boots because it's always wet, but I think that what we don't want is we don't want people not sticking to the trail because they don't want to get wet shoes if they're not wearing boots, and then create soil compaction and trail braiding. So we want, to encourage people to stay on the trail with the use of like punch-ins or cookies or whatever.
Yeah, totally. There should be just better signage.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little edit to the map, the trail map, to not show them connecting in there.
Also, that bridge, the big long bridge, is
Oh, yeah.
pretty sketchy. I'm gonna fall through it one
So
of these
yes,
days.
these are just a couple like down trees. And then I don't even know what
There's a lot of
oh,
stuff.
I'm going the wrong way.
We have bat houses too that were donated to us that I wanted to put up by the
Oh,
by the
Yeah,
field.
there you go.
Here's so I was coming down the trail and then these are the down trees.
Yeah, so if you hang a left right there, that trail connects. If you went straight, you would eventually hook up with where that trail to the left hooks up, like they connect. It's just
Yeah.
a really short shortcut. So you can just go left and skip that whole trail altogether.
Totally,
matter.
but I was trying to find these dots on the map, so I didn't want to go left. So that would have
Yeah.
gone like that way.
Yeah.
I wanted to go right, but the trees were there. So I don't know if like other people do this.
Mhm.
I think the only kiosk that you're ignoring if you don't go past that tree is one that's no longer there anyways. It's for it was for a hollow log that like a ruffed grouse, thumping log, and like a snake basking rock pile. And they're both gone.
Is that to the left there? Is that where it goes, like skirts that meadow kind of
Mhm.
thing?
It
Not
looks like-
quite yet. It
it's
almost,
like
you gotta
this.
get through the woods first and then it gets to that meadow. You're absolutely
But,
right.
like this looked like it's likely a wetland, but I
It
don't
is.
know.
It is.
Yeah. And then all in these woods were like the vernal pooly puddle.
Yeah, it's a hemlock forest, yeah. With wet soils for sure.
Okay. And at this point, I don't even know if I'm going the right direction. Am I going back the other way? Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's so confusing that you can get lost just looking at the
I'm like, where am I? Oh, but it was a beautiful day. It was like 60 degrees.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so I think this was the tree that Mitchell was like, oh, it needs to be cut, and it was nice and cut.
So somebody took their chainsaw on their walk.
Yeah, someone's like taking matters into their own hands. Okay, so here's the Long Bridge.
Yeah.
Oh, boy,
Bridge
that
is
needs
so good.
help.
And I believe that was built by like maybe the Boy Scouts.
I think so.
But yeah, it needs some TLC for sure.
And I thought there was another area up from there that was really bad that we were talking about maybe putting one in, weren't we?
Yeah, there was another spot right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
That's pretty wet.
Yeah.
The problem with that spot at the very beginning was that I think that the landowner who also logs out there needs to drive his equipment at that spot, and so it needed to be like vehicle sturdy, not just like a punch-in or something. And I think I looked at that with like with my auger a couple years ago, and it looked like it was, you know, pretty questionably wet and definitely in buffer zone. So it would be an NOI.
So as far as priorities go, though, like just as what I gathered, that wooden bridge, and then like maybe 3 down trees, such as the one on the screen. Like this is, you can tell, see the field. This is like towards the beginning of the trail. But there is a trail that's like people are making through the woods to
Yeah.
get around this tree. And then that, I mean, if you're just doing loops, that those 2 down white pines, whatever they were, you know, you can keep going on the trail. They're not across, like, they're not preventing you from progressing forward. It's just, I was trying to go on this, like the side
Specific,
connector,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they did prevent me from going on the side connector.
And I
But
think
yeah.
Link was gonna get, or Lincoln was gonna do, he got a grant, right? To like redo all the kiosks and the wildlife habitat stuff and redo
Yeah.
all of it.
So do we know anyone with like a chainsaw? Like,
We're supposed, well, when I was on a meeting with Marlo from DPW recently, I asked, so what do we do? What can we look to you for? And he said, the kinds of things that DPW does is to clear trails that have been, you know, had fallen trees, and then maybe put sawdust or chips down to, you know, get a trail better into condition. So this sounds like some of these are things that DPW could do.
okay,
The signs are things that we would do, I think.
Right.
okay. So I'll reach out to DPW with the request
Yeah.
for the down trees and see what.
And
they
then maybe ask him what the procedure should be, or if we would work with them on the bridge, or if that's something that we would have to contract out.
Okay.
for.
Okay.
I mean, that might be easy enough to just sort of put out there to Boy Scout or Girl Scout troops. You know, you need to
I'm
do
sorry, I
this
couldn't
new
hear
one.
what Emily and Erica were just saying, but I think if we wanted to put down anything like that's new, like punch-in or something, or bridges, it might need to be a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
that makes sense.
it's more complex to
Okay.
do bridges and things that are built, so, like with the land trust, you know, we're trying to replace a bridge on one of our streams on one of our properties, and it's taken a long time because the specs are just more rigorous now, so. What we had there before, we wouldn't put there again.
Okay, I'll report back what the DPW says.
Perfect,
And,
great, thank you.
That's all I have for today.
Right on.
I'm glad you had fun and hopefully you learned your way around and you'll go back.
Yeah, I'll go back, but
Yeah.
I Well, okay, so like definitely I was getting to, this one spot in the map and I'm like flipping through these photos and I'm like, oh, there's a bike in this photo. So I think Mitch and Travis rode their bikes around and that's
Yeah.
like
Oh.
to save time. I was like, oh,
But they-
that's
That
smart.
makes sense. Okay,
Because I
fair enough.
actually, that was actually one of my concerns was, because when I was out there a little while ago, a long while ago, there was a bunch of like dirt, I don't think they were dirt bikes, I think they were just mountain
Oh.
bike tracks. that
Trails,
through the
yeah.
Mud,
Yeah.
like really rutting it out and
Yeah.
stuff, and,
Yeah.
so I was, I don't know if we can. I don't know if people
Are
have to do
mountain
that,
bikes
but
not allowed back there?
I don't think there's anything that says they can't,
Ah.
but I don't know what.
Hmm.
Well, okay. I will, I'll report back and maybe bring a bike next time.
You can ride horses out there.
Oh,
Yep,
I
I've
did
seen
see a bunch
horses.
of horse manure.
Yep. Well, thanks for the update.
Yes.
Yeah, you
Thank you
bet.
so much
Do you
for being
believe
here.
that was the last item on our agenda for the evening? I closed my computer, I'm sorry.
It was the last one.
Okay.
But do you want this to like go through the motion of?
I think the next thing we do is set our next meeting date, which will be April 22nd, 2025.
Yes.
So set. And then we move to motion to close the meeting.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, let's take a vote. Kristen,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
I am also an aye. See you all again, April 22nd.
Sounds good.
Have a good night, everyone.
You
Good night.